Hi, everyone, and welcome to our second episode of cyBARR Chat's HITRUST Edition, where we'll discuss a variety of HITRUST topics like the cost of getting HITRUST certified, the difference between HITRUST and HIPAA, self-assessments, and more. So let's get started with our Q&A with Senior Consultant Swathi West. Swathi, first of all, what are the costs associated with getting HITRUST certified?
Great question, Michelle. A few essential things to consider are the cost of self-assessment, which is around $2,500 to score and submit the application to HITRUST is about, around $3,500 currently. We also have external assessor fees, which depend on the assessment scope. This varies by the client. It can be number of controls, systems, or even the regulatory factors plays a really important role here. So this is definitely unique and tailored to each client. Also, we need to consider the number of hours the client has to work and budget for internal planning, walkthroughs, and even to provide evidences for the team.
And how important is it to do a self-assessment, and what is BARR's approach?
I would say it is vital. It is the first step in preparing for HITRUST certification. The earlier the external assessor is involved in the process, the better the outcome would be. As any implemented system should be implemented and should be in place for 90 days. So the sooner we know the gaps, the sooner it can be remediated to have a successful certification. So BARR can help the clients with scope discussions, which is really, really important. And we'll cover that topic in our next BARR chat. And, same thing, we make sure anything that is implemented is properly implemented, because just to, remember, we only have 90 days. So if that is not implemented to HITRUST standards, then we have to, go back and wait for 90 days to, to have that system implemented. So we help them to make sure the implemented system is properly implemented and also understand the gaps earlier on. And, we will be there for the whole process and identify what kind of evidence HITRUST is looking for that specific requirement, and also, help the clients throughout the certification process. So I would say self-assessment is vital, and it's really important first step when you're thinking about HITRUST certification.
Now, could you talk a little bit about HIPAA and HITRUST and how they're related?
This is another common question we get: is HITRUST HIPAA related, or is it the same? And people always get confused, like, oh, HIPAA is just HITRUST or HITRUST is HIPAA, but they're not the same. But it's just the idea that, just a general idea where HITRUST is built upon HIPAA and many other regulatory standards. HIPAA is a set of standards that healthcare organizations should follow to be HIPAA compliant. That's why we hear HIPAA compliance, but not certification, because HIPAA does not provide certifications. On the other hand, HITRUST provides a prescriptive set of controls that would help HIPAA, that would meet HIPAA requirements, so you can be HIPAA compliant, and also provides the clients with certifications. Rather than thinking which one is better, it is good to think which would give more value, which would add more value and trusts, and then go from there, whether it's HIPAA or HITRUST. Our blog has more information on this topic, so if you're interested, please give it a read.
Could you also talk a little bit about interim assessments, and how would the access differ for my CSF subscribers and non-subscribers?
As I mentioned earlier in the previous chat, HITRUST is all about continuous improvement. Even though HITRUST is valid for 2 years, organizations still have to perform an assessment a year after the initial assessment. That's what we call this interim assessment. Something to keep in mind earlier on the MyCSF journey is MyCSF subscribers can begin the assessment, the interim assessment process, 120 days before the submission date by manually creating an object. But when you think about, if there's non-subscribers, then the access would only last for 60 days, and then they would be required to reconstruct the whole assessment and also the comments and scores from the previous assessment. So this is also something to consider when you're thinking about whether I need to have CSF subscription. So this is definitely, useful to think about early on whether you want to be subscribers, because it's useful for interim assessments. And for non-subscribers, it's definitely a challenge when you have to reconstruct the whole assessment. So definitely that's something to consider.
Great. Well, thank you, Swathi. Again, we are looking forward to our next HITRUST edition of cyBARR Chats, where we'll discuss important conversations to have with your external assessors, HITRUST plus SOC 2, and more. See everyone next time. Have a great day.
Thank you, Michelle.